Welcome to a bonus episode. I'm your host, Karina Belizzi. Today, I am thrilled to bring you an interview that Dr. Shawn Tassone recorded on the Forever Young radio show. At the close of the interview with Dr. Tassone and Kelly Capizola, I joined Kelly to talk about a unique offer that we have available for all of our listeners with the Tested by You campaign. So stick around for that part because that unique offer could get you $100 in free tests to verify your omega-3 index. This is a pleasure to listen to as Dr. Tassone shines. He literally shares his Shines protocol, which is all about helping women define their hormonal issues and ultimately walk towards better health. Without further ado, here's that episode of Forever Young.
The information provided on the Forever Young Show by its host or sponsors is for educational and personal alternatives. Statements have not been established by the Food and Drug Administration. They are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Welcome to the Forever Young Radio Show. Over the past 2 decades, we have had the opportunity to serve and help so many listeners. We do that by bringing on respected educators in all fields of health and wellness. We pride ourselves on keeping consumers in the know about our ever-changing healthcare system and ways to support the body. Each week, with the help of our special guests and experts, we have one goal in mind, and that's to ensure every listener has the most up-to-date information on ways to support all aspects of health. Now, here's your host.
Hello, everyone. So glad you could join us today right here on Forever Young. If it's the first time you've actually come across our show, whether it be on the traditional radio dial, Sirius XM, or any of our wonderful podcast platforms, welcome. We are so grateful to have you here each and every week. We show up so we can tell you what's going on in today's health world, trends, hacks, different things you want to learn about, different things you want to avoid, just sharing great content each and every week with our very special guests who join us. If you'd like to learn more about the show, it's very easy to do so. You can do that at foreveryoungradio.com. Again, foreveryoungradio.com. We have over 430 podcast episodes there, articles from A to Z, written from some great contributors, different sponsors that we deal with, and a lot from America's Natural Doctor, Dr. Mark Stangler. So you can go ahead and learn more there. Now, really excited today. We have a first-time guest. I've heard a lot about this wonderful gentleman, and we're going to cover a really great topic, and that's really myths surrounding women's health. And we're going to do a highlight on hormones. And again, that guest today is Shawn Tassone, MD, PhD, also known as America's holistic gynecologist. He's the first physician in the United States to be double board certified in obstetrics and gynecology by the American Board of Integrative Medicine. He holds both a medical degree as well as a PhD in mind-body medicine. That's so awesome. I can't wait to talk to him more about that. He also hosts the podcast Confessions of a Male Gynecologist, a really, really great show. I think there's a 30 plus episodes you can pick up off his website. We're going to go ahead and give you that as well as we get going. He is also a very well-established author, and his newest book, The Hormone Balance Bible, can be found on Amazon and other outlets nationwide. Dr. T, welcome to the show. So grateful for you to join me today.
Hey, thank you. When you read all those things, it makes me sound actually interesting.
Hey, I had to edit it. There's even more interesting things about you that I didn't include. I'll sprinkle them in through our conversation today. But,
Great.
I'm a big believer in when someone really cares about their patients and really cares about what they're doing, it makes it just a really fun thing to follow that and to share that with others, because you can tell in the last 20 years, you've helped 40,000 plus women. And these are women struggling with things like fatigue, weight gain, decreased libido, and just not feeling as motivated as they once were because they're not feeling their best. But every time we have a new guest on, Dr. Tassone, I like to ask, really, what was your motivation? Were you born and then you're like, whoa, this gynecologist is so nice, I want to become a gynecologist? Like, where were you in the mindset of how you ended up down this path?
Well, I would hope that there is no man alive that is born and goes, I want to be a gynecologist. I hope it doesn't happen that way. I think, for me, it's very multifaceted. I do hearken back to 21 years ago. I was kind of new into my actual training. And to be perfectly honest, there's a very superficial answer as to why I went into OBGYN. it just appealed to me because it's a very happy profession for the most part. You're delivering babies. When you're 27 and you're deciding what you want to do for a living as a doctor, you think, oh, I can do call forever. I'm going to be young forever. And then you're in your 40s and you're like, what the heck was I thinking? Because I haven't slept in 4 days. But I really liked the fact that it was multifaceted. There's surgery. You're dealing with complex issues like diabetes and thyroid, and then you got pregnancy. And it just was never boring. And it tended to be a happier profession. I think on a deeper level, and maybe somewhat metaphysically, I maybe was prepping for my own future in the sense that my mom, when I was a second-year resident, was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And I knew a lot about that disease process as a resident. What I didn't plan on was that when my mom was going through the turmoils of chemotherapy and surgeries and all the things that go with that, I couldn't even help my own mom just feel better, like just not feel horrible. And just physically, she just felt miserable, and she would call me crying, and I'm an only child. And I just really when she finally passed away about 5 years later at the young age of 56, I can't be a doctor and have somebody else's mom. I couldn't even help my own mom, it's like, and so that really just pushed me to learn more and to do more. And so I guess this book is because of that tragedy, and I'm hopeful that I can reach other women so that they don't have to suffer.
Well, I think that's a great place of really speaking from the heart. And thank you for sharing that with us. Goodness, 40,000 women. I think you're doing pretty good. I think that's a low estimate too. I think you might have been creeping up to 50,000 at this point, but we'll talk more throughout the show on that. And again, what is a great website for people to go and learn a little bit more? I know you have the clinic website and then you have another one. What would be the one that you should recommend for people?
Well, my favorite website is Instagram. I never thought I would say that, but I do a lot of engagement with patients every Saturday. I have a Q&A. I get probably 50 to 100 questions that I answer. And that's just my name, Shawn Tassone, MD, on Instagram. If you really want to know more about me, though, Tassone, Tassone, MD.com.
And also on our weekly highlight page at foreveryoungradio.com, we'll go ahead and put all of Dr. Tassone's handles and ways you can learn more. There's a really great hormone quiz you can learn more that we're going to talk about. But when we come back, more on your health. And I'm going to pick his brain on a few myths when it comes to women's health. Stick with us.
Give your heart health and your immune system a boost with omega-3s and spirulina from the world's most sustainable grower in the world, Orlo Nutrition. Orlo grows algae in pure, sustainable abundance in their first-of-its-kind aquaculture plant house in Iceland. Their products are more bioavailable. This means you get all the benefits without fishy burps or nasty aftertaste. Orlo Nutrition's unique polar omega structure boasts 3 times the amount of absorption over fish or other algae oils. Orlo is the future of nutrition. Omega-3s and immune-boosting micronutrients that provide all the benefits without damaging Earth's ecosystems, so people and planet can thrive. Visit orlonutrition.com today. That's ORLO nutrition.com. Get an exclusive 20% discount at orlonutrition.com when using the code FOREVER at checkout. Orlo Nutrition, because nutrition shouldn't be an either-or. That's ORLO nutrition.com.
Welcome back, listeners. Again, having a wonderful conversation with our very special guest today, Dr. Shawn Tassone, MD, PhD, also known as America's Holistic Gynecologist. Again, if you want to learn more about him, it's super easy to do that at our weekly highlight page at foreveryoungradio.com. Also, don't forget to check out his newest book, The Hormone Balance Bible. That can be found on Amazon and nationwide. You're seeing a lot of patients, and I love that. You have your finger on the pulse of what's going on. You are hearing their chief complaints. You're helping them navigate through what they're dealing with. But what are a few myths about women's health that is being spun out there that you think maybe have very little merit?
Well, I tend to believe that hormone, it's funny because a lot of my colleagues they really enjoy going out there and just shooting everything down. Like everything you do is horrible and nothing is abnormal or normal. And the one myth that really is pervasive right now is that there is no such thing as hormone imbalance, and there's no such thing There's no reason to do hormone testing. And I really feel like that is first of all, I wrote a 500-page book called the Hormone Balance Bible. So if there is no such thing as hormone imbalance, I'm screwed. I just wasted 5 years of my life. But I think what it does is it gaslights women. And we know that that's pervasive in medicine right now. But yes, hormones fluctuate all the time. And when doctors say that, there's a partial kernel of truth there that it's hard to know. But if you do know where she is in her cycle and you draw the blood, you know what they should be. And you also can look at her symptoms. And the other thing is that you're told, this isn't necessarily a myth, but you're told this all the time. Oh, your hormones, they'll finally acquiesce and they'll draw them, your levels, and then they'll say everything's normal, you're fine, you're just 40 and you're getting older. Well, we don't say that to men. We don't tell men, oh, you're just getting older. We help them. But for women, for some reason, you're just getting older. And so that's a myth. You're not just getting older. You need to be your best advocate. And if you don't feel right, then keep pushing. Be your own advocate and push harder.
You even referenced in your book, The Hormone Balance Bible, that 4 out of 5 women will face life-altering hormonal imbalances, and at times different conditions that can wreak havoc on the physical and mental health. So if they're being, kind of dismissed and saying, oh, this is my number one pet peeve. When somebody goes, hey, Kelly, I had my thyroid checked. I don't think I have a problem. It looks normal. Okay, well, what did they look at? When they only look at one component, TSH.
Yep.
I mean, that's an incredible disservice. T3, T4, all of those things are very, very important components. So, I think there's a lot of skirting around at time. And that's why women are told, hey, this is just a part of life. We're all going to go through the change. You may get hot flashes, you may not. That's not really a good health plan in place as they're suffering sleepless nights, not feeling their best and being told, adrenal dysfunction or adrenal fatigue has no merit. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I think what happens, and this is part of the issue too, doctors will often say, well, adrenal fatigue isn't a diagnosis. Okay, well, that's true. There is no diagnosis for it. However, does that mean that if your cortisol levels are on the low normal side that you wouldn't have symptoms? No. So what the problem is my colleagues are getting hung up on the words. So we often talk about also something called estrogen dominance, where maybe your estrogen levels are high compared to your progesterone levels. It's not a technical diagnosis. However, it can cause symptoms, breast tenderness, heavy periods, painful periods, weight gain, irritability. I mean, it can cause problems, but we don't have a technical diagnosis. So
right,
where we're getting hung up.
Yeah. And I love that you say that, because I think that's a perfect explanation. And again, you're seeing these people, you're dealing with them each and every day. One component, I know we're really focusing on a women's health show, but I find it very interesting that women seem to have more hormone disruption than men. Like women have more thyroid issues. You don't generally hear a large group of men dealing with that. Again, women go through menopause, men go through andropause. And there has been, I'm sure, dips in testosterone with all of the plastics and different chemicals in our food supply. But why do you think women tend to have more hormonal challenges than men?
Well, women have more fluctuations in their hormones. Men, we don't cycle. Mm-hmm. We make fun of women who cycle, and we have sitcoms that make fun of women who cycle. And I remember when my mom was going through perimenopause as a teenager, I remember saying one day, and I never said it again, did you take your pill today? And I immediately ran out of the house because of the look I got. But we don't have those fluctuations. Men tend to just be fairly steady, and our estrogen levels, we do have estrogen, are really low, and they don't really fluctuate. But women are constantly in flux. And sometimes they're very sensitive to that flux, that movement in their cycles. And that's the other thing. Whereas some women may be fine with the fluctuations, other women are very, very ultra sensitive to those fluctuations. And that's why you get PMS and PMDD and anxiety and insomnia. Men don't usually suffer from those things. And then you have the increase in autoimmune diseases like Hashimoto's and rheumatoid arthritis. And we think that might even be related to the fact that y'all have estrogen and the fluctuations of those hormones. So women are probably 80 to 90% more likely to have an autoimmune disorder than a man.
And have you seen in the 20 years you've been in practice, in the last maybe 5 years, have you seen a big uptick in autoimmune conditions?
Yes, you could make the argument that maybe because I'm looking, I'm finding, but the reality is, I think maybe we're not looking, so we're not finding them as well on the other side. And what I tend to do now is when let's say I have a woman come in for a hormone evaluation, one of the things I routinely check for now that I didn't probably 5 years ago is Hashimoto's. So I'll check for thyroid peroxidase antibodies. And I have women come in all the time who have a normal TSH, like you just mentioned, but their free T3, which is their active thyroid hormone, is, I look at normal as this. I always speak in analogies because I think it connects better. And if you look at lab values, it's like a house. Okay, it could be normal. You're in the house. And I always say you're in the house, but you're laying on the floor in the basement. Now, you might feel better in the middle on the main floor, but you're in the basement. And to tell somebody that's a normal feeling is just wrong. And so then I'll look at their thyroid peroxidase antibodies, and their antibodies are through the roof, which means they have this inflammation in their thyroid that hasn't affected the way that their brain talks to their thyroid. So their TSH is normal, but their actual hormones are in the basement, and they have all this inflammation in their thyroid gland. And we're just telling them they're fine. It's like, go ahead, you're fine. And she's like, no, I'm not fine. And so usually by the time a patient finds me, I'm probably her fifth doctor. And it's because we're not doing our jobs.
And I love that you test. I mean, test, don't guess. It's like otherwise you're shooting a shotgun at an ant, trying to decide, okay, it could be this, it could be that. And I can tell that you really, when you sit down with your patient, really want to know that, like, their past, what's going on, what are some of the symptoms that you're dealing with. You almost become like an investigator of health, which is awesome. And that's probably why you're their fifth doctor and final doctor. But at the end of it, I think it's interesting that most people will say, oh, they just tested my estrogen. Doesn't things like progesterone or DHEA, what are some other things that you're maybe looking at to maybe see if that woman during menopause or even before has higher testosterone at times more than maybe her husband even has?
Well, I just saw a lady about an hour ago whose testosterone, I don't know if this is bad for me or her, but her testosterone is actually higher than mine.
Wow.
And it's because she's on a pellet, which is a completely other tragic thing that is being done to women. But she's on a hormone pellet. But what I look at, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and not just total testosterone, but what's called a free testosterone, which is active in the body, sex hormone binding globulin, which can affect your testosterone levels. For thyroid, it's a thyroid stimulating hormone, a free T3, a free T4. Those are the two thyroid hormones. Thyroid peroxidase antibodies, DHEA, like you just mentioned. Vitamin D is super important. The only hormone that's a little bit tricky to test at times is cortisol. Cortisol isn't a great thing to test via blood. Usually you want to kind of come at that with saliva or urine. And I have a whole episode on my podcast about testing because it's a topic in and of itself. And that's I would consider that a basic panel. And then if something's off, I'll go a little bit deeper. Like if a woman had, say, really high testosterone, but she wasn't on, say, pellet medication, well, why would it be so high? She could have PCOS. She could have an ovarian tumor. I just had a lady the other day whose husband was putting on his androgel on his stomach, and then he would have sex with her and he'd sweat all over the place, and he was giving her all his testosterone. So it is kind of like CSI for hormones. You do sometimes have to do some investigations.
Yeah. But I do like that you go into those protocols. Testing is a very important equation. And when we come back from the break, I want to pick your brain on a few different things, especially on the hormone replacement, get your view on the pellets, and then talk a little bit more about things maybe you like to incorporate. I know you're a fan of omega-3s. I know you're a fan of maca. Yep. So I kind of want to talk to you about that. So listeners, learn more about our very special guest. Again, you can do that on the weekly highlight page at foreveryoungradio.com. We'll be right back after the break.
Feeling stressed and unfocused lately? You might be deficient in DHA, an essential omega-3. DHA makes up half the fat in your brain and eyes, and without it, entire health systems crumble. Thankfully, there's an easy solution. Orlo Nutrition provides active omega-3s in the polar lipid form for up to 3 times better absorption than fish oil. You'll get all the benefits of the omega-3's EPA and DHA in a smaller pill without that fishy burp. These active omegas get straight to work supporting your healthy focus, attention, vision, and so much more. Orlo is the future of nutrition. Algae-based omega-3s and nutrition solutions that are better absorbed for better efficacy and that are better for the planet. Visit orlonutrition.com today. That's ORLO nutrition.com. Listeners of Forever Young qualify for an exclusive 20% discount at orlonutrition.com. Just use the code FOREVER at checkout. Orlo Nutrition, because nutrition shouldn't be an either-or.
Welcome back, listeners. Again, having a very eye-opening conversation with new friend of the show, and I hope he'll continue to come back, Dr. Shawn Tassone. Again, you can learn more about him and his wonderful practice and even take a quiz that he has on his website, tassonemd.com, TASSONE.MD.com. Again, we have that link directly from our weekly highlight page at foreveryoungradio.com. Now, in your business, you deal a lot with hormone replacement. And I think there's been a lot in the marketplace where people have been reading articles and they talk about certain things. They're worried and they're fearful. Is this going to give me a potential issue with breast cancer? Or should I not take this because I have a history of cancer? Or even things controversial like pellets. Is all hormone replacement created equal, or are there ones that you even avoid?
No, they're not all created equal. The typical ways to replace hormones currently are pills, capsules, which have been around forever, topical creams or patches. Occasionally, I've seen women on vaginal creams or suppositories, sublingual tablets, and as you mentioned, pellets. And even now, I'm seeing some women that are getting injections instead of pellets, like subcutaneous injections. Mm-hmm. So it runs the gamut. I am more of a believer in topical hormones and even sublingual tablets. Maybe less than 5% of my patients are actually on a capsule, and then pellets. I am fervently, adamantly opposed to, and anybody that follows me for more than 5 minutes on Instagram will know that.
I was going to ask you in another direction. How often, like you practice both, there's a place for pharmaceutical, there's a place for nutraceutical. Obviously, if I get hit by a car and you bring me an omega-3, I'm going to be a little angry, but at the end of the day, I take an omega-3 every single day, especially with my Hashimoto's. I do some fasting in the morning. It just works better for me. But I have a very demanding job. So the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I make sure I'm taking my Orlo Nutrition, my omega-3. But for people who are coming into your office and you're marrying the two, pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, what are some of the other supplements that you maybe like to recommend? I know in previous that you really like standalone formulas for the most part, like things like maca, but tell us a little bit more about that.
So a lot of the things on the market now, is that area of nutraceuticals and supplements is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And you're on Facebook for more than 10 minutes, you're going to get bombarded with ads about every product that solves every problem you've ever had. The problem that I have with some of these proprietary formulas, if you look at them, it's like 35 ingredients. And I don't know which of those ingredients is actually working, or maybe none of them are working, or maybe it's 2 of them. So when I tend to recommend supplements, I'm kind of a whole ingredient person. So like you mentioned, maca, there's a lot of maca out there and it's in a lot of things. I just like maca. If we're going to use maca, let's use maca. If we're going to use omega-3s, let's just use an omega-3. Let's not put a ton of stuff in it, like lavender or whatever. I'm a big fan of magnesium. There's different types of magnesium. I like magnesium glycinate. There's different kinds of magnesium. Vitamin D, you can find vitamin D, and a lot of women take too much sometimes vitamin D because it's in 4 of the supplements that they're taking. And so that's the other thing, is a lot of people are taking supplements that overlap, and you're getting too much of one thing. And so I'm kind of more of a single ingredient type person.
So again, so maca, if you would use that, would that be again for somebody who is postmenopausal, if they're dealing with hot flashes? What would be some of the recommendations on why you would say, hey, try maca?
So, analogy again, I kind of look at hormones as being tiles, like on your bathroom wall. And maca is kind of the grout that holds things together. We don't know the exact mechanism of action with maca, but we do know that it has the ability to make things work better. It's not necessarily going to change your levels. It makes things next level. So it may help with hot flashes, sleep, irritability, drive, desire. And the thing about maca that's fascinating, there's 13 different phenotypes. There's black, red, orange. There's different kinds of maca. And maca, when you buy it in a powdered form, a lot of women will come in and say, oh, I take that, but I put it in my shake. The problem is I don't know what's in it. It's all ground up and it's powdered. So I don't know exactly what's in that. And if there's maca that works for men's health, there's maca that's perimenopausal, there's menopausal, there's PCOS. And we know this because of the studies that have been done by certain companies on these. So I like to use different formulas of maca for different problems because they work differently. And black maca has a different component if you grow it in a different part of Peru than red maca. It's really fascinating how it works. And unfortunately, a big Chinese company came in about 5 years ago and bought a lot of the maca on the market, and they pulverized it and they mixed it with a bunch of other stuff. And that's what's in the shakes. And then an amazing company came in after that happened, and they bought the land so that can't happen again, and they pay the farmers a fair wage. And so I just really like to do a lot of the research on that end of things and work with companies that I share visions with that I think make quality, spiritually based, sustainable products.
How are you integrating things like omega-3s into your office for certain patients, maybe dealing with, heavy flows or horrible premenstrual issues?
Well, omega-3s are in my top 3. I think everybody should be on them. And I used to do fish oil. And then, the common complaints of burping, and some people didn't like the idea of fish. And I was kind of getting a little bit worried about the sustainability and things like that, which is why I eventually found Orlo and the algae-based products. But the thing with omega-3s is we just don't get enough of them. We get too much omega-6 in our diet. And then the food that we eats poorly. So like cows, they have too much omega-6. But omega-6, because it works on prostaglandins, and those are chemicals in the body that actually we use to induce labor. When your prostaglandins are high, you contract really hard. It's a vasodilator, so you bleed more. And those women tend to have heavy, painful periods. Well, simply by upping omega-3s, you can shift the prostaglandin production not only down, but over to a different type of prostaglandin that doesn't cause all those problems. So I have young girls that come in 14, 16 that have been put on birth control pills. And because that's obviously the answer to everything. And when we take them off and I put them on these prostaglandin inhibitors, like high doses of omega-3s, it's like amazing. And not only is it helping with their periods, it helps with acne, it helps with thyroid, insulin resistance. I mean, the inflammation, the anti-inflammatory aspects. I mean, it's just huge.
I love Orlo because of that polar lipid. I mean, 3 times better absorption rate than general fish oil. In the next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about that because, again, I think testing that component, we talk about how important testing is at your office and being able to understand. I think a lot of people are walking around not really understanding what their omega-3 ratios are within the body.
I mean, I would probably be guilty of that too. And because of companies like Orlo, I'm starting to do that testing with my own patients and starting to do it in a way where we're testing them prior to, and then we're testing them after 3 months. So I'm really excited to kind of see those results because I think that's what women want too. They want to know the stuff that I can show them their hormones. I can show them that the levels are changing and they know how they feel. But with omega-3s, the testing has always been iffy. And this is really great because we can offer it now just in the office.
And again, Dr. Tassone, I appreciate you so much. And I really want people to go to your website and do the hormone mapping quiz. It's really easy to understand. Tell us a little bit more about Shines before we have to say goodbye to you.
So the Shines protocol just came, when you write a book and you come up with a problem, you have to have a way to fix it. That's the basic tenet of a book. And what I did was I wanted to come up with a multifaceted approach because that's how I have kind of evolved over the last 15 years. And so what I did was, and you have to have a snappy moniker because that's how people remember things.
Totally.
So Shines means spiritual practice. And a spiritual practice can be something like walking, journaling, going out in the sun, and they're different for all of these. I have 12 different hormone imbalance archetypes. The H is for hormones, which is pretty self-explanatory. The I is for infoceuticals. And infoceuticals is just a fancy way of saying energetic transfer to the body. So essential oils, Reiki, healing touch, different acupuncture, things like that. The N is nutrition. The E is exercise. And the final S is supplementation. And 5 of those 6 things are things you can do on your own. The hormones, you obviously need a physician, but the other 5 are just self-care things. And the book has a different Shines protocol for each of the 12 archetypes. And it's not something you have to buy per se, the supplements maybe, but it's really just things that you can do on your own. And if you feel like you want to add hormones, that's when you can see a healthcare provider.
TassoneMD.com, TassoneMD.com. Again, we have that link directly from our weekly highlight page at foreveryoungradio.com. Dr. Tassone, really, really appreciate our time today. I hope you'll come back.
Most definitely. Anytime.
Listeners, stay with us. We're going to be joined by Karina Belizzi, a good friend of the show, and she's going to tell us the benefits and why we would want to test. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Have you ever wondered whether you're getting enough omega-3s? At Orlo, we're so confident you'll see results with our better absorbed bioactive omega-3s. We're footing the bill to prove it with third-party test results. Orlo's Tested by You limited edition program is a first-of-its-kind initiative to help track your omega-3 progress before and after supplementation. Tested by You subscribers will receive 2 third-party tests with their first 6-month subscription, an additional value worth $100. You'll receive 1 test with your first shipment to establish your pre-Orlo baseline, and 1 after your 4th month to show improvement over time. Visit orlonutrition.com, that's ORLO nutrition.com, and get your Tested by You subscription today. While subscribers receive 15% off every day, listeners of this show will receive an exclusive discount with the code TESTFOREVER, all uppercase. Learn more at orlonutrition.com, that's ORLO nutrition.com.
Welcome back, listeners. Again, what a wonderful conversation we just had with Dr. Tassone. I wanted to invite on Karina Belizzi, again from Orlo Nutrition. We have done a couple of shows together and many shows together over the last 20 years. But again, I wanted to bring you on, Karina, because this Tested by You campaign is one of the only things I've ever heard about out there that you're doing with the combination of Orlo Nutrition. Let's talk about that. So how are you doing, Karina?
Fantastic. I just sat here in the peanut gallery listening to your conversation with Dr. Tassone, and I just can't get enough of him. So I listened to his podcast, Confessions of a Male Gynecologist. I've had him on my shows, and It's just such a treat to hear his knowledge, his breadth of understanding of women's health.
Listeners can learn more and watch that podcast episode or listen to it that you did with Dr. Tassone at orlonutrition.com. Again, that's ORLO nutrition.com. Click the podcast button and you can learn more. Now, Karina, I think it's interesting. We talked about some supplements that he likes to recommend to his patients. Again, omega-3s in his top 3. Particularly, he uses Orlo Nutrition because he's moved away from the fish and sees the benefit of using a polar lipid in an algae form. But again, you and I have been in the health industry 20 plus years. And I think many people doubt the effectiveness of supplements, vitamins, and even alternative nutrition. That's what has made me so excited about this Tested by You campaign that offers people an opportunity to test the effectiveness of not only omega-3s, but how Orlo's omega-3 soft gel pills are absorbed in the bodies. Let's talk a little bit more about that. What is this great new thing, the Tested by You campaign? If I know you right, you spearheaded this whole thing.
Well, we certainly started talking about it months ago, but this is also in connection with a research study that we're presently undertaking where we're doing a direct comparison between our algae and a fish oil of the same exact concentration. We know what the results are going to be, but they're not in yet. So we just didn't feel like waiting. So this Tested by You campaign is simply a way to help people understand today what their baseline omega-3 is, but then also how much more they can improve over the course of just 4 months. So within the first 6 months of their new subscription to this Tested by You campaign, they can see what their baseline is. They can get that result right out the gates. And then 4 months later, they can have a new result that can show them not only will they have experienced a health change, they would have felt different, they also will see directly in the numbers how this impacted their health. They'll have something tangible to latch on to. And I think this is so critical because as well, you could call me an omega-3 evangelist if you want. That's what my husband does. But the reality is that we see so many different health implications that get solved by getting your omega-3s to the right index level.
Right.
And what we're aiming to do is help people get to that ideal 8%. And so if we can show them at 0 and then at 4 months how they're doing, they can make an adjustment to their lifestyle from there, even if they haven't quite reached where they want to be. They can see where they started, they can see where they're going. And overall, this is like $100 value to the individual who's taking part in this campaign, in addition to the discount that they get on the product.
Now, why is Orlo the first supplement brand to offer this test? Is it because you actually believe in your product and you know what you're doing out there or what? Because I don't see a lot of other companies being so brazen to be like, hey, take our products for 4 months, take the test and see where you're at. I mean, that's a pretty bold statement.
Yeah, I mean, the confidence level, let's just say, is very, very high that they will see measurable results and that they'll keep taking the product. We already see that individuals who've come on to be our loyal subscribers have said things to us like, hey, I've never had this happen before, but my dry eye complaints are gone. I've tried fish oil, I've tried other omegas, and I always had these persistent problems. My eyes would be dry and scratchy and itchy. They would hurt. I started your product, and on day 4, my complaints are gone. These are the sorts of things that we hear from the customers who take our products. And so I just want to be clear with everyone, when you take an active omega-3, that's in the polar lipid form, it's got EPA, it's got DHA. These are the direct omega-3s that all of your cells in your body need to thrive. That is what's going to make the biggest difference for you. You'll feel a difference, and you'll also see it come out in the results. And what's so critical about this too is that when people get to that ideal, let's say 8% saturation in all their cells, which they can see when they take the omega-3 index test. Sorry for the mic noise. I just shook the test in my hand here. That's a specific point at which we see all-cause mortality just kind of drop off a cliff. And it's not to say that any particular product is going to help you get there, but this is what really strong long-term research like the Framingham study out of the Boston area show, that when people get to an ideal level of 8% omega-3, they just see fewer health complaints, less need for medication. And really, I think that's a thing that we need to ingrain into our understanding, that we don't have a deficiency in these drugs that we're being given. Yeah. We have an insufficiency of the right nutrition. We have an insufficiency in our activity levels that we need to address because we have a more sedentary life. So we get these things right, we get better sleep, we get better nutrition, and we get better activity levels, then our health can soar and we can live a long, full health span, so that, as Dr. Maroon likes to say, he's going to die young, as old as possible. That's Absolutely. My goal too.
And again, I just need to be honest. I've taken fish oil for years and I never really felt anything, but I knew I needed it, right? All the 20,000 plus studies on PubMed. I started taking Orlo. Within days, I felt just clearer, just less stress, just feeling better and feeling more focused. And that was something I was really, really needing as approaching, my 50s and my body's changing. I'm going through all these different changes, but even coming out of the pandemic, just dealing with the brain fog of just all the stress that people were dealing with.
Yeah. And, I think this drives home the point, it's like a polar lipid, its shape is different. And the shape of the polar lipid's head itself helps it get into your cells. It's how your cells actually construct their cellular membranes anyway. they'll have a polar head, and then they'll have the hydroscopic tails, right? And those face inward, but then enable traffic of nutrient across your cells and elimination of toxins. And so if you're not getting fats in a form that you can absorb into your cells, then that other product that might be a little less expensive, it's essentially wasted. And so how much of the things that you invest in when it comes to your health is absorbed is absolutely critical. And so when we say up to 3 times better absorbed than fish oil, there's other things that come with that. You don't have the fishy burp. You don't have the digestive distress that can sometimes accompany it. You can take it with or without food and still get really great absorption. So it doesn't matter the time of day. I just tell people to take it when you will remember to take it. And that can mean just taking your beautiful glass bottle of Orlo and leaving it right there on your bathroom counter. And then the soft gels themselves are even colored with chlorophyllin, which is, of course, from algae, because we thought of everything. But ultimately, it means that the material inside is protected. It's not going to oxidize. It won't go fishy. It doesn't start from fish anyways, but omegas can oxidize, and often even when algae oils oxidize, they'll start to smell fishy. We haven't seen that happen with our product at all.
What can consumers do? Say they've never used Orlo, they want to do the test. What is the best method of action for that?
So here's the deal. Our test is offered as part of a subscription, so you get 15% off every day on the test. But I want to be able to give a little extra juice to your listeners. And so we're going to honor a slightly extra discount to pull you up to that typical 20% for that first shipment. So you'll get the $50 value of the omega-3 index basic test, along with your first 2-month subscription that includes that beautiful starter kit bottle that's made of Miron violet glass, and along with your 2-month supply. And then as part of the subscription, you'll get another shipment that's in between, just 2 months later. And then that third shipment after your 4th month will include your second test. You want to be sure to take your test right away when you receive them, and you need to take your omega-3s every day so that you're sure that you can get the best results possible.
The test results are based on the omega-3 index. So that's the actual absorption in one's cells, not just from the stomach or the blood. So
that's right.
Really, really great, Karina. I love that you put this together. But again, I hope you'll take this opportunity at Orlo Nutrition. That's ORLO nutrition.com. Again, that code is TEST forever. That will get you that great discount on additional 5% off the subscribe and save, totaling 20% all in combination. So you can learn more again at orlonutrition.com. Again, that code is TEST forever. Karina, thank you so much for the introduction to Dr. Tassone. What a wonderful interview. I really enjoyed speaking to him. And again, thank you for all you do for our listeners out there so they can get a better understanding on where they're at with their levels of omega-3s and providing a very good algae form of omega-3 via Orlo.
Oh, thank you so much, Kelly. Together, we can create a better future. This is awesome. So just go to those tested by you pages. And I just want to remind everyone, you can choose omega-3, DHA, or prenatal DHA, whichever omega-3 you want to be a part of this campaign.
That does it for our show today. Have a happy and healthy week, and we'll catch you next time right here on Forever Young.